What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are breaking down my dynasty rankings for the top 24 non-quarterbacks in this class, right? So, and I'm doing 24 because I was thinking, 12-team league, 2 rounds. That's kind of how I wanted to break it down. And I'm not doing quarterbacks mainly because, honestly, I think they're just kind of boring to talk about, and it kind of muddies the water when you talk about the rest of this because positional value makes them go earlier or later. I don't know. It's like, we know the quarterbacks. I feel like everyone's going to have a similar ranking. For me, if you just make me rank the quarterbacks, and I'll just put it out there right now, and then we can kind of get past it and talk about what the point of this video is. I got the 5 top quarterbacks that went in the top 15 this year, and it goes exactly the way they got drafted. I mean, Lawrence 1, Wilson 2. I think those are studs. They're superstars. I think they're going to be special in the NFL. Trey Lance, who I wasn't quite as high on. I didn't think he was worth the 3rd pick in the draft, but 49ers trade up to go get him, and I love Kyle Shanahan. I love that offense. That's going to be special. It really is. I do believe that. And then Justin Fields, another guy, wasn't incredibly high on. I have questions about, but certainly see the upside as well. Not a huge fan of the Bears, offense at this point. Matt Nagy has not proven it to me, but we'll see what happens there, and he certainly has that running ability. He's 4, and then 5 is Mac Jones. We'll see what happens if he starts. You never know. But let's get into the point of this video, and what I do is I'm doing the first 2 years. That's kind of how I'm framing this conversation. What are these guys going to be able to do in the first 2 years of their career? How does their situation line up for the next 2 years? Because anything outside of that, it's just impossible to guess. We're going into the 2021 season. Think about where the Dolphins were 2 years ago. Right. Think about where the Cardinals were 2 years ago to where they are now. The NFL moves so quickly. It's so difficult to really project, and these rankings are going to be so different after 3 weeks in the NFL, let alone a year, let alone 2 years. Okay, so that's why I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the first 2 years. I'm looking at opportunity plus talent, and that's all I'm really worried about. All right, so let's talk about 21 through 24 on my list. Right. All right. So my last 4 on my list, you see Des Fitzpatrick, Ramondre Stevenson, Nico Collins, and Josh Palmer, right? And a lot of these guys, 4th round picks or 3rd round picks, and they're all kind of clumped together for me because I see a combination of, okay, I like certain things about their game, and I really see opportunity, right? For Des Fitzpatrick, just getting on the tail end of this list, and the reason I ended up putting him there was because I look at the Titans and I say, ooh, okay, you got A.J. Brown, great. Corey Davis is with the Jets. Look, maybe they end up landing Julio Jones, but as of recording this video, they don't have a Julio Jones on the roster, and I know there's a lot of rumors there. I live in Tennessee, so there's a lot of excitement about that possibility. But beyond that, I don't have anything else. So Des Fitzpatrick, to me, has the perfect opportunity, let alone this is a player that the Titans traded 3 picks to go up and get. And that doesn't really mean a whole lot. I get that, but it just shows the coaching staff at least really believed in this guy, really liked him in that range, and they went in and got him. So the opportunity is there. That's why I put him in the back end, somebody to think about later on in your rookie drafts or fantasy drafts. At number 23, Ramondre Stevenson. And to me, Ramondre Stevenson, he's that guy that the Patriots will use at the goal line. He's that guy who I could see getting some starts early on. Listen, I never advocate for a Patriots running back, but I certainly see value there. He's a guy who's drafted early on in the 4th round. He's a bigger bodied dude. Obviously he's going to be down the depth chart. You have a Damian Harris, who I thought was really good. JJ Taylor is going to be a guy who has a role there. Obviously they have White on there. So the Patriots are doing what they always do. They stockpile running backs. I do think he'll be a part of that rotation in some way, and I really like the player. That's why I'm putting him on this list. He doesn't have incredible upside, and what I mean by that is he'll never be a running back 1 as long as he's with the Patriots. I just don't see that. I don't see that upside for him. I could see him being a capable RB2, at his peak. That's his top end possibility. So not a priority pick, but certainly a guy I like. And then moving on to Nico Collins, this is one of those where it's like, okay, the situation's really good. I think for a wide receiver similar to Des Fitzpatrick, as I talked about, and also this is a guy who was in my top 10. I do see him as a very, very good boundary receiver. I think this is a guy who I really like. Now we're getting into the conversation like, man, the upside here is awesome, right? Because I do think Nico Collins has legitimate upside, and then you put him on an offense where, yeah, okay, I get Randall Cobb is there in the slot, but he's not going to ever be slot. He's your outside boundary receiver. So Randall Cobb really isn't a part of this conversation as far as what we're talking about. He comes into a perfect situation, right? You have Brandon Cooks on the other side. He is going to be your true wide receiver. At least he has that opportunity to be that from day one. So yeah, I really think the upside there is he's starting. He's on the field for 65% of the snaps from week one on. And I mean, that just, if he becomes a presence in that passing game, the sky's the limit. I really believe that. This is a guy who I think, we're getting to the conversation of like, okay, I could see in the first 2 years him really making a name for himself, right? And that's how I try to differentiate, right? I look, 1 year, okay, what's opportunity? How can he get on the field right away? Who's in his way? Okay, nobody's in his way. Do I believe in the talent? Yes, I do. Just remember his name. Don't forget about him. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar. I get it's the Texans, all of those other things. You're not excited about that aspect of it, but hey, a bad team has to throw the football, right? So there's some positives there. Moving on to a Josh Palmer. This is a guy going to the Chargers. I really like Josh Palmer. This is a guy who, comes out of UT. Obviously, as I said, I live in Tennessee, so I was a little bit aware of this guy early on. I don't think I studied him. I didn't realize that he was going to be in the conversation of third round pick. He ends up going to the third round to the Chargers, and this is a guy who's a pretty good route runner, and I think just fits along with what they have, right? They have a Mike Williams on the boundary, right? And I think this guy could supplant Mike Williams as far as like Mike Williams is going to be looking for a payday at the end of this year. Josh Palmer seems like the guy. If Josh Palmer hits, they're not going to pay Mike Williams. That's kind of where I look at this, and that's where I see the opportunity. And then obviously, he's not going to have the pressure of being the guy because you already have the guy. You're good with Keenan Allen, right? And then on top of that, I really believe in Justin Herbert. I really believe in what that offense can be. I love the opportunity. I love the possibility. Josh Palmer to me, 21, another guy. Hey, think about him. Look at him at the back end of your roster because there is a clear path to not only starting but being very successful on that football team. Moving on, let me give you my next clump of guys. I'm going to give you my next three names on this list: Tutu Atwell, Larry Roundtree, and Amari Rodgers. And it just gets into this next tier of okay. There's excitement. There's legitimate excitement / I see a world. And I'm going to have to explain the Larry Roundtree one because I get a late round running back. Maybe I shouldn't be this high on my list, but he is because I really believe in him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Tutu Atwell, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. We know who he is, first of all. He is a speedster, explosive, dynamic guy. Goes to the Rams, another wide receiver they draft in the third round. We'll see where he can be. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have as much excitement. I had to put him here on this list because draft value is a real thing. All right, they drafted him in the second round. He's supposed to be a speedster. I do believe he has the opportunity. He's going to get 5 to 6 touches a game. I really believe that's the possibility. Now, are 3 of them going to be end rounds and we'll see what happens there? Yeah, probably. Moving on to my 19th pick, Larry Roundtree, and this is a surprise. I get it. We're talking about a late round guy. A guy went the 6th round. You never expect anything more than anything from this guy, from these type of guys. But I like Larry Roundtree's talent, first of all. So a lot of this is I thought Larry Roundtree was at the top end of that next tier of running backs. Now, I thought 5th round, so he's not far off from where I was thinking. I did think 5th round. There's certainly some limitations there. I don't want to oversell his talent, but I did like it, and I do think there's NFL starting capability there, and you get enough NFL starters in the late round to where I can, I don't think anyone's going to call me crazy for saying that possibility is there. And then I just look at this roster, right? You go beyond an Austin Eckler, who's really taken the reins there, but he's had some injury issues this past year. Obviously, we know about that. When Austin Eckler went down, Justin Jefferson and Joshua Kelly did not step up. That's the back end of their roster, right? Joshua Kelly, they drafted, I think, 3rd round, maybe 4th round last year. I didn't like that pick at all. You can go back and look at my draft breakdown from the 2020 draft. I didn't like it. I was never a Josh Kelly guy. Never really saw the upside. I love the player. I love the story from college and all that. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I was right a little bit on that one, man. He struggled. He really did not take over. He did not take over the game. And Justin Jackson, who, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really thought he had a chance to really step up and take on that role. Honestly, the same kind of story. They just really were never able to find the answer beyond an Austin Eckler. So I look at Larry Roundtree as I expect him to be the RB2. I do. I expect that. So if he's RB2, he's this close to that starting running back role. I like the upside there, and I really think just opportunity. That's why I'm putting him as high as I did in this list. Moving on, Amari Rodgers, another guy who, listen, he has the opportunity to be the wide receiver 2 on that roster, and this is with the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. He wouldn't be on this list if he wasn't. I can't see the future. I don't know what's going to happen with the Rodgers situation. Doesn't seem like anybody does. But at this point, he's still a Packer. I can't imagine the Packers trading a future Hall of Fame quarterback after winning the MVP last year. So there's not a world where I don't see him playing. Maybe he holds out and doesn't start. I don't know. Until then, and I don't really want to get bogged down by that, I look at Amari Rodgers as a guy who, listen, I've said throughout the process, he was a very tough eval for me. He was a guy who I saw him in that Clemson offense. I thought he had a lot of easy plays. He had a lot of, okay, let me just get open versus zone. Oh, there's like 5 plays a game where it's like, just throw me the slant, throw me the out route, give me the ball in my hand, and I'm going to run like a running back, because that's really what he is. He's a running back playing wide receiver. Like his body and everything, the way he plays is running back-esque. But he's a wide receiver. I certainly see upside there. I love him with the ball in his hands, and don't know for sure how he's going to be versus man coverage in the NFL. I have no idea. Can he get open? I don't know. That's my question. That's why I didn't see him as a top 3 round guy, but he ends up going in the 3rd round to the Packers. Packers need that guy. It seems like they're still looking like Allen Lazard, kind of maybe, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, kind of maybe, there's a lot of guys that are just guys on that list, and Amari Rodgers has a chance. He could end up being the wide receiver 2 on a team that has Aaron Rodgers. And with that being said, let me show you round 2. I'm gonna show you the next 5 players on my list here. Rondell Moore, De'Ami Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kenneth Gainwell, and Trey Sermon. All right, that rounds out my back end of this roster, my second half of this Dynasty rankings. So obviously we got to talk about Rondell Moore here at 17. Love the player. The upside is awesome. 2nd round pick. I get it. All those things are really, really good. And really the only reason he's this far down is the combination of, okay, injuries have been an issue the past 2 years, so I'm not just giving you a pass and saying you're healthy. You have to prove it to me. If you're hurt for 2 years in a row, you got to prove it to me. That's how I work. That's how I think. And then on top of that, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, AJ Brown. There's conversation of Julio Jones going there as well, which obviously that doesn't factor in, but it's just worth mentioning. The wide receiver room has some guys there. Obviously Andy Isabella looks like a bust at this point, right? And it looks like, maybe Rondell Moore can replace that Andy Isabella. I just don't see a ton of fantasy value early on. The upside's awesome, and that's why he's at this point in his list, because I couldn't put him any farther down. The upside is just too great. So yeah, the upside's there, but the downside of him just not being able to break into that starting lineup consistently and not being able to get the snaps and the targets that it would take to be fantasy relevant, the possibility is there, and that's why he's a little bit lower than maybe everybody else's list. I don't know. I haven't looked at anybody else's list, but I would imagine, a highly touted guy goes mid-second round. Certainly some things like there. 16, De'Ami Brown, 3rd round pick, a guy out of North Carolina who I absolutely loved, has the speed to be the outside receiver. I think he fits into this offense really, really well. You have Terry McLaurin playing that slot. He can play anywhere on the field, but he's, I feel like, most comfortable in the slot, and he's that dynamic guy who can do a lot of different things. I look at De'Ami Brown, not quite as dynamic. He's outside receiver, speed, boundary receiver type of guy. Had a limited route tree in college. We'll see how that develops in the NFL. But I just look at a guy who's like, man, the upside there with a De'Ami, with the Washington football team that I think can be really good. I think their offense is going to take a step forward regardless of who's under center, especially with Fitzpatrick. I mean, he's going to be throwing it. We know that, right? De'Ami Brown, I'd see a really good situation there where he can be the wide receiver 2 on that team from week 1 in the 2021 season. And I do like the talent enough to think, okay, the upside is there for a really, really special athlete. And this is a boomer bust kind of guy. I get it. I'm putting him pretty early on at 16. There's some hype there. I'm putting him ahead of some guys that I probably liked a little bit more coming into the draft. I certainly did. There's no doubt about it. But the situation is so good to me. The upside is so high to me. I think he should be a guy that you're targeting second round in your dynasty drafts, or all those things. I really do. And obviously you talk about redraft. I really think late round roster pick. I don't have a problem if you take a shot on a Dyami Brown. I really don't. Moving on to Amon-Ra St. Brown at 15. This is another guy who I really liked. I liked coming in. He's a route runner, right? He's a route runner. I thought he had a good chance to go to a team like, the 49ers or the Patriots, teams that value route running. Ends up going to the Lions. I suppose they value route running a whole lot as well. The opportunity is obvious, and that's really where this starts and ends. The talent I really liked. He was a top 10 wide receiver for me coming into the class, and you look at the opportunity. He has the potential, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. He has the potential to be wide receiver 1 from day one. He really does. You look at the rest of the roster. Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perryman, Quintez Cephas. I mean, that's what we're working with here. Nobody who's significantly proven on that wide receiver roster. You get a Amon-Ra St. Brown. If he balls out, he has the opportunity to go in and be the number 1 from day one. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that opportunity is hard to ignore. You look at a Jared Goff who just came from the Rams, who is used to throwing to route runners. He's used to throwing to guys who can run really precise, dynamic routes, and that is what Amon-Ra brings to you day one. He can run very precise, dynamic routes. Is he the fastest guy in the world? No, he's not the most explosive athlete. He's not. But what he lacks in that, he makes up for in really, really good route running and the ability to separate because of it. All right, certainly in college, we'll see that translates to the NFL. It's tough to dissect that at a very, deep level, but I certainly think there's a lot of upside to him as a player in general. I loved him pre-draft and all those things. Goes into just the perfect situation. That's why he's where he is in this list. Obviously, Lions are what they are. You don't expect them to be, just killing it offensively this year. But hey, bad teams got to throw late. That's what I always end with. And then we're getting to 14, Kenneth Gainwell. This is a personal thing for me. All right, you look at the running backs as a whole on this list. They're few and far between. A lot more wide receivers than running backs on this list. And Kenneth Gainwell gets to the point where I thought he was the 4th best running back in this class. I thought he was a shoo-in for a day 2 pick. I really did. The fact that he fell as far as he did definitely surprised me. And it definitely makes me take a look back and think, okay, where was I wrong? What did I miss here to think I was so far off from where I thought he would go in the draft to where he did? And honestly, I have a video planned to actually break that down in a very deep level. So, hey, if you're interested in that video, subscribe, all that good stuff. But for me in this situation, I'm not ready to just say I was totally wrong. I'm not. Guys go in the 5th round all the time and end up being pretty damn good in the NFL, especially at the running back position. So I'm not ready to call it quits there. And listen, I'm not the biggest Miles Sanders guy. I'm not. I'm not high on him. He's not proven to me that he is the legit number 1 on that football team. And listen, that's a personal thing. A lot of people disagree with me. I follow a lot of people in the fantasy football world who are still very, very very, very high on Miles Sanders and still believe in the upside. 2nd round pick from 2019. It is way too early to call Bustville or anything like that. I get it. So that's a personal opinion that I have that you can disagree with, and we can still be friends. All right. So don't at me in the comments. The reason I see him at this high on the list is because I see the ability to overtake the starting job. I said it. I do. I believe that. And I know I'm crazy there. I know that is outside of the norm for most people. This is probably the most bold spot that I have on this list. And I get that. I do. But that's what I believe. That's what I see as a possibility. So I'm sticking to it, man. I see for sure he's the running back 2 on that roster. Very similar to the way I see Larry Roundtree. He's the running back 2 on that roster, in my opinion, from day one. I just don't see him struggling to overtake a Boston Scott. I just don't. I think he is that guy. I think he's dynamic enough. I think he has the explosiveness. All of those things that I like about a Kenneth Gainwell. I think he can go in and take over Miles Sanders' job. I don't know, man. This is the one where I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm putting him really high on my list comparatively, as far as, I feel like not everyone's going to have the 5th round pick to the Eagles this high on their list. I get that. I'm putting as I said, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I believe he has a chance to get the starting job. That's why I value him here. And granted, he should not be the 14th player drafted in your dynasty draft or rookie draft or whatever. He shouldn't be. But if he's available the back end of the second round, John Camacho between the Pylons really believes in his upside, and you should consider it. All right, let's move on to number 13, Trey Sermon, going to the 49ers in the third round. The 49ers trade 2 fourth-rounders to trade up and go grab a Trey Sermon. Listen, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not the biggest fan of Trey Sermon coming into the draft. I wasn't. I saw him as a fourth-round guy, which again, he went pretty close. He went late third. I had him, mid fourth, so I wasn't like crazy off on him. Didn't think he was worth trading up for or anything like that for the 49ers, but it makes sense. And he's going to a situation, he's going to my favorite running back offense in the NFL, right? If you're a running back that goes to the 49ers, I'm going to take notice, right? And granted, look, the 49ers aren't particularly interested in fantasy football as much as, we'd like them to be, but, they certainly have a lot of speed on that roster. I look at Trey Sermon, who has game-breaking speed, but he's definitely more of a bruiser than he is a scat back. And I think this is the thunder to a lot of the lightning that they already have on that roster, right? I see an upside there. I see certainly running back 2 capabilities, and then the upside is, I could see him being an RB1. I could. In that offense, with the way Kyle Shanahan, he just knows that scheme so well. They run it to perfection. They obviously liked him enough to trade up and go get him. The upside is there to be an RB1. So that's why he's here at 13. I have reservations about the player. I do. I certainly did not think he was a day 2 pick, but again, that's kind of splitting hairs a little bit. And at this point, hey, we got to move forward and not look back. All right. And with that, let's move on to my next tier of guys. And I'm going to give you the next 5 guys on my list, 12 to 8, right? And it's Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Jalen Waddle, and Terrace Marshall. All right. In that order. Look, a lot of people are going to golf at Rashad Bateman being at 12. I get it. This is a combination of, listen, Lamar Jackson, and I've gone back and watched a couple of games over the past, week or so. I was, had some time off, was just relaxing. Hey, let's put on a couple Ravens games. Let's look at their passing offense a little bit, because it is certainly an enigma to me at this point. And I'm not impressed by Lamar Jackson as a thrower, and I don't know if that's going to improve. It needs to. It really does. It needs to for me to ever really believe in their downfield passing attack. I just don't believe in it right now. Rashad Bateman, he comes into a really good situation. That's why he's where he is on the list. I didn't love the talent. I saw him as a back end of the second round type of guy, and I know I was alone in that. Everyone else saw him as a first round guy. He obviously ends up going first round. I was wrong on that. We'll see what happens as far as like if I was actually wrong or whatever. But the NFL obviously disagreed with me, and we tend to think that the guys that do it for a living probably a little bit smarter than me. So, but beyond that, I look at Rashad Bateman as a guy who he does go into good situation. So the upside is certainly there. I don't believe in the passing offense. I really don't. I see him getting 650 yards, 650 and 4 touchdowns. I could see something like that happening. And this is the tier where it's like, okay, I'm looking for guys that can be, difference makers. You get into round 1. You get into round 1 and it's like, over the next 2 years, I want to see a guy who can develop into a star. We're past the point. Like the first part of this video, the first half of this video was me talking about guys who have a chance to go in and make a splash and all of these other things. Now we're getting into expectations. Now we're getting into, okay, I need you to produce. And I see him. I see him as the guy who I don't expect a whole lot more than 600 or 700 yards. I don't expect a whole lot more than like 3 to 5 touchdowns, something along those lines. And if he blows that out of the water, that's awesome. You got a great pick, and he certainly has the opportunity to do that. The upside is there. That's kind of where I see him. That's why he's where he is on this list. And there's certainly he's in a clump, right? Kadarius Toney and Elijah Moore, I see similarly. And then you move on to an Elijah Moore who goes 1 pick ahead in my list, and this is a guy who went he was the next wide receiver drafted after Rashad Bateman. And the reason he's higher is because I see a world, I see a possibility, and a chance, if you will, where he is Deebo Samuel. Okay, you look at Mike LaFleur's offense, right? You're coming from that Kyle Shanahan school of thinking. Obviously, with Robert Saleh being the head coach, you brought in that Shanahan LaFleur type of offense. So there's a lot of connections there. I think Elijah Moore's gonna go in. He's gonna be the slot receiver. You have a Corey Davis to be outside. You have a Mims to be outside. You have guys like that. And listen, you have Crowder. Jamison Crowder, who I really like. I think he's awesome. He's an awesome player. There is a possibility where he doesn't crack the roster. I get it. But I look at Elijah Moore. This is a team that's going to be young. They're going to be developing. This is going to be about getting better every week. And I see Elijah Moore being a guy who could go into that roster and be a difference maker early on. He could be Deebo Samuel. That's where I got excited. And then we move on to my 10th guy on this list, and it is Kadarius Toney. And you look at the fantasy football community, and they're out on Kadarius Toney a little bit, right? Like I feel like I'm hearing nothing but negative things about Kadarius Toney, and I get it to an extent. He does feel like that guy who's like all explosive and not super awesome route runner and all of these things, and developed late. And there's a lot of metrics and things that kind of count against him in certain little pockets of this fantasy football and really community, I guess you would say. And I get why like that community really wouldn't love him, but I look at it a little bit and I'm like, okay, listen, I loved Kadarius Toney coming out. He's my 5th wide receiver on the board. I love the upside. I look at Kadarius Toney as a poor man's Devontae Smith, and it's kind of funny how that ended up working out, right? Like I mentioned him, I compared him to Devontae Smith in a couple different ways before the draft, and then it's the Giants who obviously trade back, missed out on Devontae Smith and drafted Kadarius Toney, right? So the parallels are always going to be there. He's always going to be compared to a Devontae Smith, but I don't think that's a bad thing. He's just as explosive, I feel like. He's incredibly explosive. He's ridiculously explosive. And then on top of that, he's tough as hell. He's a little bit thicker than Devontae Smith. No, he's not the route runner that Devontae Smith is. But man, I see a world where he can be a difference maker on this football team. And this is make or break here for Daniel Jones. And I get it. And I'm not the biggest Daniel Jones guy. I'm not sold yet. We'll see what happens. But they got Kenny Galladay. They bring in a John Ross, who I think Kadarius Toney actually supplants, to be totally honest with you. They already have Darius Slayton on their roster. They have some pieces there that I think make this wide receiver room very interesting. And I think Kadarius Toney can be the crown jewel a little bit of like the speed dude who just teams have to watch out for. Now, does it ever develop into fantasy production? I don't know, but I couldn't put him any lower than this on my list, because I look at the upside as legit. I really do. And I like Kadarius Toney. I'm sorry that the rest of the world is kind of out on him and the situation he's in. He is the second option, and it's unfortunate to be the 20th pick in the draft and be considered the consolation prize on your own team. So that obviously sucks, but it is what it is. I do believe in the upside, and I'm very excited to see what happens with him. And then moving on to Jalen Waddle, number 9. I'm a Dolphins fan. We drafted him 6 overall. There's always something to be talked about when you talk about fantasy and you talk about these rookies. Draft value matters. Draft value does matter to me, and it definitely accounts in my rankings. And it accounts even more maybe than my own value of the player. And that certainly has been accounted for as well. I've talked about that throughout this video. But Jalen Waddle, listen, I think he was absolutely deserving of being the second wide receiver off the board. I think the Dolphins got a great player. I think he fits into that slot receiver position really, really well. You already have Devontae Parker. You already have Preston Williams. Now you have a speed guy to go along with a Jakeem Grant. And yeah, he can be a difference maker. He really can. The reason he's this low on the list is because, you just never know with the Dolphins. You never, and maybe I'm just a cynical Dolphins fan who puts him a little bit lower than it should, but I just couldn't put him any higher than the rest of these guys on this list, in my opinion. Going into a situation where he should be wide receiver 2, he should be able to put up, 700-800 yards and 6-7 touchdowns year 1, and then be able to develop on top of that. I would hope for that, but I could certainly see a world where he just doesn't get the usage early on, and I'm not sold on Tua yet. We'll see what happens with him. There's a lot of variables there, and that's why he maybe fell down. There's a lot of things I'm like, ooh, I don't know. But moving on to Terrace Marshall at number 8. Yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of what the Panthers are putting together. I'm a big fan of Terrace Marshall. I loved him. The fact that he went late second because of some medical issues that were never quite explained to the public, which is totally fine. They don't need to be. That's a private situation for Terrace Marshall. But I certainly see the upside there. He's going to a Joe Brady who was the OC for LSU when they won the championship. Now he's with the Panthers, so they're going to know how to use him. This is the third piece in that offense, and I think Terrace Marshall does go in, and by year 2 in this offense, yeah, I do think he'll be the wide receiver 2 on that football team. I love DJ Moore, and I think he's a stud. So he's the number one for me. I look at Anderson, who he's the guy. He's going to be the number 2 this year, but I think Terrace Marshall could overtake that by year 2, and I think he's going to go in and be very valuable and get a lot of looks early on. Putting him at 8 is a little bit bold because of the situation he's in. The target share is not going to be maybe as nice, but I just love the player. I love the upside, and I love the situation. And then let's move on to my next 5 on this list: Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, Devontae Smith, and Kyle Pitts. I put Javonte Williams where he's at because I see a world where he is the starter by the mid-season point. I actually really expect that. I think he will be the RB1 by mid-season. I know you have a Gordon there, but Gordon has gotten older to me. To me, Javonte Williams fits the style very similarly to a Melvin Gordon, and I think Javonte Williams will overtake that early on. I love Javonte Williams a whole lot. I think the upside is there. He's a guy I will be looking at. If he is there at the back end of the first round of my dynasty draft, I'm going to be taking him because the running back situation this year, it's few and far between. This is the third guy, and a lot of people are going to consider him the third best running back option. I don't, and that's only because of Michael Carter at number 6, and I think Carter's just in a better situation. And Carter, I liked Javonte Williams more than Carter, but I had Carter as my 5th wide running back on the board. Granted, I did think there was a little bit of a drop off after 4, but I certainly saw the upside with Michael Carter, and he's going to the perfect spot. And the reason that Michael Carter is number 6 and Javonte Williams is number 7 is because I see the opportunity is great. I think he's going to a team that's going to know how to run the football. Their history with the Jets, I already mentioned Robert Saleh coming from the 49ers. You have Mike LaFleur coming from that same kind of scheme a little bit, and going to have some really good understanding of how to run the football in that same 49ers fashion. And then on top of that, who's he have to beat out? Tevin Coleman, LaMichael P. Ryan from last year, who's like a 4th-round pick, who I just wasn't as big of a fan of. I know Michael Carter's a 4th-round pick as well, but I didn't like LaMichael P. Ryan nearly as much. I love Michael Carter. So, I think he's RB1 from day one. I really do. I think he gets that job early on in the 2021 season. If it's not day 1, it's week 3, week 4. I think he will supplant whoever's there. I think he has the ability to be I think he can carry the load. I really do. I think the upside is super, super special. He goes to the perfect situation. That's why he's number 6. And that's why, listen, Michael Carter is one of those guys where, when I first did my preliminary rankings, he was not in the top 12. And then I kept thinking about it, kept looking at him like, shit, is he top 5? I was like, fuck, he's not only not top, he's not only top 12, he's top 10. Shit, he's top 6. And the only reason I couldn't put him in top 5 is because Devontae Smith is special. Kyle Pitts is special. We know the situations, right? Devontae Smith obviously going to the perfect spot where he can be wide receiver 1 with the Eagles. We'll see what happens with Jalen Hurts. Listen, I'm not the biggest Hurts guy. I don't believe in his passing ability long term. I don't believe him as the long term answer to the quarterback position. He's a great athlete. He can run the ball really, really well, and he can make most of the throws. I don't believe in him consistently as a passer, so that's why it's like, okay, Devontae Smith maybe isn't in that tier 1, but he's my second highest wide receiver on this list, so I don't have a problem with it. Kyle Pitts obviously goes ahead of him. Listen, we've all heard the hype, right? And I know Julio Jones. We'll see what happens there, but I do think he'll probably be gone. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be probably the second, on his own team, he will get the second most targets on that team. Falcons should be probably throwing the ball a whole lot. They didn't really go running back in the draft, so I would imagine, Arthur Smith has a passing attack that he really likes, has a passing scheme that, he's prepared and ready to go with these weapons that they have on the roster already. Obviously, Julio Jones is going to be a hit, but hey, I think that helps out Kyle Pitts, and that's part of why I put him at 4. Originally, he was at 5, and I put him ahead of Devontae Smith because I was like, okay, I do have questions about Jalen Hurts. I don't have nearly as many questions about Kyle Pitts and his situation from a Matt Ryan standpoint. And then now that Julio Jones is looking like he's out the door, I had to put him at 4. And then I will give you my top 3 players, and it's running back, wide receiver. I'm going to go from 1st to 3rd here just to finish out this video. Jamar Chase is number 1 because he was my number 1 non-quarterback coming in this class. He goes to a Bengals situation situation where it's like, okay, I love Joe Burrow. I'm going to love Jamar Chase. I love his opportunity. I think he goes in and he takes that wide receiver 1 job. I love everything about that. So for a dynasty ranking long term, yeah, I'm gonna give wide receiver over running back. Najee Harris at number 2, because listen, he's going to be the RB1 on that Steelers football team. I've seen what Le'Veon Bell can do. I've seen what the Steelers like to do with having a workhorse running back. Najee Harris is built to be that. Now listen, did I like Travis Etienne more than Najee Harris? Absolutely. But you get into situation, you get into where they landed. Obviously, Najee Harris goes 1 pick ahead of a Travis Etienne, and I think he even went into a better situation. I think Big Ben is going to rely on his weapons and rely on his running game as much as he can. I don't see where he isn't, an RB1 at the end of the year. I just don't see how that would happen. And then Travis Etienne, obviously I have a little bit of questions. Okay, where are they going to use him? He's practicing at wide receiver for the Jaguars, and I love that, by the way. Like, he's a really good pass catching back. Why not just get those reps at the slot position? You can utilize him, doing what Le'Veon Bell used to always do. He used to, go out to the slot and get targets from the slot position, and then he would go back to the running back, and you could do so many different things with the Le'Veon Bell style. Travis Etienne, to me, I look at it as the same kind of guy where they're going to use him in so many different ways, and I get it. I really like James Robinson as well, undrafted guy who really performed last year and showed that he can start and all those things. But hey, it's a new system, it's a new world here, and Urban Meyer values speed over power, and James Robinson was a little bit more power than speed. Travis Etienne has that game breaking speed. He has the ability to be used all over the roster, and then on top of that, I think even when James Robinson is in the lineup, Travis Etienne might be as well. He might be over there a slot. And then, there's so many unique and cool things that you can do with stuff like that. I'm very excited about that. And then I am always going to get the reason these two are ahead of anybody else at the running back position. They're in my top 3 is because I do think there's a fall off as far as after Javonte Williams at 7, there's really not a running back you get excited about. I like Trey Sermon and Kenneth Gainwell at 13 and 14. I'm putting the whole list on the board, by the way. Yeah, okay, there's excitement there from me as far as okay, what could happen. Larry Roundtree, excitement there for me as far as what could happen. But beyond that, yeah, these are the 2 guys okay, they're going to be superstars. They're going to be studs. That's why I looked at this running back position, and running back did get a push up overall over some wide receivers because of the lack of running backs in this class. There's a lack of guys to really be excited about. After the top 3 that went, for 2 in the first round and then 1 early in the second, Javonte Williams, there was, a lack of running backs that went. And Trey Sermon went 3rd round. Okay, that was cool. You had Michael Carter go 4th round in kind of his own little area. That was great. And then after that, it was okay, Kenneth Gainwell was 5th. Larry Roundtree was 6th, and there was a bunch of other guys that went in that range that, their 20 running backs got drafted. 4 went top 3 rounds. So there's just a lack of upside for these top guys. With that being said, that's why the guys that I like, the guys that I value, got pushed up a little bit. All right, guys, that is all I have. I did not anticipate this video being as long as it did, but I sat down here. I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna break down every player. And 24 players later, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, check back more for more videos soon. I got a lot of really cool stuff planned. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.